Well, that was certainly one of the all-star games and experiences of all time. Pascal Siakam was very much himself. The rest of it was completely nuts. There needs to be some changes. We're going to talk about all that and Siakam's weekend all on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Monday and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers and today a lot about the NBA. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today looking a lot at All-Star Weekend, starting with the Pacers and Pascal Siakam. He was kind of fun in the All-Star game that he played meaningful minutes in. In the final game, he did not a lot at all. In what became a farce of basketball. Oh, I have a lot to say about the format. The format was actually kind of cool, but the weekend itself was just, what are we doing? What are we doing? Am I too old? A lot to get to. Plus, the G League games happened. Keisei Tominaga representing the Mad Ants. Lots to break down from that as well. Heads up for this week and today. My voice fading away quickly. And every episode after today for this week will be pre-recorded because I'll be going on my honeymoon. Woohoo! I got married on Saturday, so hence the voice being gone. I will go as long as I can. I'm very tired. It's super late, and I just watched one of the worst All-Star games ever. But Pascal Siakam was not the worst part of it. I enjoyed him being on Team World, and I enjoyed the league not making it Team Chuck and saying Team World as much as they could throughout this to make it very clear what they were doing. And I actually thought in my notes his team should have been the favorites on paper with Kat and Jokic and SGA and Victor Wembanyama, trying very hard to Victor Wembanyama. And in their first game, they played against this, they called them the Young Stars team, and Siakam scored twice, very Siakam-y buckets. One was cutting across the lane, getting a pass from Jokic, and then kind of got a seal, turned over his left shoulder. Easy bucket. He was parked in the corner a lot when SGA was going crazy, but he hit SGA on a beautiful cut during a post-up on a nice bounce pass. And then, of course, as every Pacer does, I think Tyrese Haliburton did this for most of his points in the All-Star games. Run ahead and transition, baby. Got an easy bucket leaking out there. But that team looked good in that game, right? I actually thought he might win this thing, not because he was dominating or anything, but because his team was awesome, right? SGA looked great. Cat hit some threes. Jokic was zinging the thing around. Donovan Mitchell was handling the ball. Trae Young was 5 dimes. Like, it looked fun. And then they got smoked in the championship game, which is fine. The OG's team was also very good. Steph went crazy. Jason Tatum went crazy. Siakam played 3 minutes and had 1 rebound. All I can say about the way he played, and I actually appreciate this when this is how All-Star games go. For example, to use I'll start with what I liked. Like, I like when players play like themselves on this stage, as in, like, the product they give you to become an all-star is the product they give you on the floor in an all-star game. That can be very challenging for a lot of players. Let's say styles or we're not so exciting. Post-up guys typically don't look very fun in these games. But like Cade was really fun to watch, right, in his event, and he had a powerful dunk. He had a 3. Like, that's what you want to see. That's what Cade has ascended to this year. Jalen Brunson did not look very fun, right? He couldn't get into his pick and rolls, and his team scenario is very good for him, and he's a very good player, but it didn't look very effective, right? And then, like, in the championship game, Tatum was playing like Tatum and looked really good, and Steph was playing like Steph and looked really good, and Dame could not play like Dame and do what he did last year, right? He did not look very good, and Pascal couldn't play like Pascal and didn't do a whole lot, for example. And I appreciated that in that first game, the display of what Pacers Pascal Siakam is, and why he's been one of the best 25 players in the NBA this season, why he's in this game, why he's being introduced as an all-star and has this weekend moment in San Francisco. That's what he did in a game that they won, and he looked pretty good. And I always appreciate that. And I tip my cap to every all-star who actually did that. The title game was really rough for his team. They couldn't score. They were down 11-1 before something that I'll complain about in a second happened. That was a bunch of nonsense. He had an offensive rebound in that time, got rid of the ball. And that was it for his weekend of play. He barely played the rest of the way. They tried other lineups. They tried putting Wemby out there because he was trying a little harder than a lot of other guys, and it didn't matter at all. They just got run over in that championship game. The best thing for Pacers fans, the best thing for Pascal Siakam, he did it. He didn't get hurt. Perfect. Nobody got hurt once again. I thought Keontae George was flicking his wrist for a second. We were getting a bunch of columns about maybe him getting hurt by playing in the extra games because his team won the G League champion or the Rising Stars game to make it this far. Alas, I believe no injuries in this. And that is all I have to say about Pascal Siakam in the All-Star game. And now I'm just going to rant for a while if you guys will let me, because I think this is going to be the talk of every podcast or media consumption you do for a while, because until games restart, everyone's going to want to talk about All-Star. And I don't have the most unique perspective ever, but I was at the All-Star game last year for the first time when it was in Indy. I got to see it. I got to see all the fanfare that goes on in between all the stoppages of a 48-minute game and what that looks like for fans and how a change in format that's different. Does this help? How does this competitiveness matter? And what should the All-Star game actually be, right? That's kind of what I was thinking about a lot when I was very confused during a lot of this. So let's start with the games that were played, this new format, because I will admit, I even said this. I think I said this on this podcast when this got announced and I was running through it when going through Pascal's early All-Star case this season. I was a very big skeptic of this format. If you didn't watch it or don't know anything about it, they divided the three groups of All-Stars, 24 of them, into 3 teams of 8. And then they had a 4th team of 8 teams of 9. I'm bad at math. And then they had a 4th team that was the winner of the Rising Stars event, which was young players that they put into this game that, like Keontae George, Trace Jackson-Davis. I'm missing some for sure. Zach Edey, obviously, for you Purdue people, like that. That was the 4th team, with the thought being that would make it more fun, or like there'd be new guys in the game. Like Dalton Connect looked kind of cool. He had 8 points. Stephon Castle did some fun stuff. They actually made it interesting with the Team OGs in that first game. And I think there was an element of like, we don't want to lose to those guys. Regardless, if that was the 4 teams in it, they played a tournament. Every game was to 40 instead of timed. And then the winning team is the winning team. So I was a skeptic. I thought it was a little silly. Like Draymond got clowned. Draymond Green was on TV a lot saying, oh, these guys don't deserve to be playing in the All-Star game or on the stage. And like when this format came out, I kind of agreed with that. I thought this is kind of silly. People want to watch the guys that they have voted for, that the guys that get named, like they're the biggest names. They're the All-Stars, stars for a reason. Like that's the product people want, right? I will concede that I like Elam ending. I think that was a fun way to do it in past All-Stars. And I think the tournament style can get you something potentially going. But the inclusion of that extra team made it all seem very gimmicky to me and didn't seem like something I would like. I will say this, compared to the All-Star game I was at last year, and I think pretty much the last 15 years, like it was a little more competitive. Like there was actual effort put in at times. People kept citing this, and I agree with this if you didn't watch it. Like block shot numbers were a good proxy for like real defensive effort. And the first round games felt more intense than the championship game. The first game Siakam played in had 6 total blocks. It was a very short game. I think the most minutes played for any player was like 9. Right? It was actual some effort defensively. Like Wembanyama took it seriously. He was joking with Jokic before the game about it, and it wasn't like good defense. To be clear, there was more defensive effort than in years past. There were actual steals. Like you had to work a little bit to get open shots at times, not all the time. Like SGA's game winner in that game was comically easy. He just like walked past Tyler Hero basically. But I did think the actual basketball product on the floor was better because of that. And then this will come up as a theme later, but the team that had to play against the Rising Stars, there was an element. I think Steph said this when he was doing TV before the championship game of like, yeah, we can't, or it might have been Dame. Like he said, like, yeah, we can't lose to those guys. Can't be the team that loses to those guys. Like that pushes you a little harder to give some effort and win. And so it ended up being the actual basketball itself was a little bit of a level up from, I would say, the past 3 years. 2020 All-Star game in Chicago was pretty good. Everything since then has not been great. So I was actually pleasantly surprised about the basketball product. Let's talk about everything else because, oh my gosh, what did we just watch? They've got to change something, or we all need to admit something about ourselves. We might be getting old, everybody. We're going to talk about that here coming up on Locked On Pacers. Before we do that, though, we need to talk about Hungry Root when it comes to grocery shopping and meal planning. I've had the same ongoing problem as many. Just don't have the time between work life and trying to eat healthier. There's a constant feeling of being stressed. You go to the grocery store, buy things you don't need, then you end up with no time to actually cook and sticking to your health goals. It's a huge struggle. Everything changed when Hungry Root came in the picture. It's been a game changer. It's the easiest way to eat healthy without the stress. With Hungry Root, it's like having a personal shopper and a nutritionist all in one. They take care of your grocery shopping, recommending meals and groceries based on your taste and health goals, from anti-inflammatory to high protein to gluten-free options. And the best part, every meal is ready in 15 minutes or less. Quick, healthy meals that actually taste great, all delivered straight to your door. Huge time saver. It has made healthy eating way simpler. You're going to love Hungry Root as much as I do. So for a limited time, 40% off your first month plus a free item in every box for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA with that code LockedOnNBA to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA with that code LockedOnNBA. Do not miss out. Back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Make your second listen Locked On Warriors, because Steph Curry, I just saw on my phone, has been named the MVP of the All-Star thing games, plural, that just happened, which is deserved. It's in San Fran. He played very well. What a year of calendar time for Steph Curry. It's a shame the Warriors have gotten very little team success, but his team has Jimmy Butler now. He had the awesome Olympics. Good for Steph Curry. Okay, what just happened? What did I just watch on TV? And I had a moment, there were a couple of these, where I thought, this is not for me anymore. So first of all, let's talk about some stuff that just, I don't think I know anyone who liked them, regardless of age. So TNT broadcast. I will admit that I am not an Inside the NBA fan. Lots of people are. I'm not going to talk about them, their product, their typical product today. However, they had brought Kevin Hart into the mix, and they had a lot of that crew actually doing play-by-play on games. None of that was good. None of that was good. Kevin Hart was not funny. He was complaining about big men making three-pointers, which who cares? They're good players. He said not to shoot one, and then Karl-Anthony Towns drilled one. It was very funny. He made awkward jokes in between the games with Shaq. Like, it was just weird. I didn't understand why he had to be a part of it. He didn't add any value to the broadcast. And I wondered why, when they were doing this, why are they doing this? Why is Kevin, I would understand the guys in the last year of TNT holding the broadcast rights for this, why they're all part of it and have bigger roles and all sorts of stuff like that. Why is Kevin Hart doing this? What is the purpose of this, right? Are they trying to make and then I realized, obviously the answer is they're trying to make this broadcast and this event more fun to watch, even if the game isn't as good. And I would say that he was a detractor from better games than usual, right? I did not like that part at all. And I think if they're going to try to make the product more enjoyable, they need to just have like basketball celebrity guests, or something like that like more fans watching know of them for basketball reasons, not for comedy, humor, acting, whatever reasons. That's just my opinion, but I've yet to talk to anyone or see an opinion of anybody who enjoyed Kevin Hart's work on the broadcast. Okay, thing two, though, that made me think about what the NBA was actually doing with this event was after the first game, so Siakam plays, they win. They did this thing. Some of you might not know who this is, I've realized, with Mr. Beast. I know who he is from younger people. He makes YouTube videos that are like very well produced and are very, very, very popular among people younger than me, which is a key point I'll come back to in a second. So between games, they just had him come down and they pulled the fan down and he did a 3-point shooting event against Dame Lillard. And it was cool that the fan won and won a bunch of money, apparently. That was interesting. So to zoom out, even if you don't know who Mr. Beast is, the event was cool. Like seeing a fan and Dame Lillard shoot threes against each other was interesting, right? Like that was new. There was suspense. The premise of it was he has to make 1 3 before Dame made 3. Like, that's cool. That's clever. Not a natural MC, Mr. Beast is. I have seen a couple of his videos before. Not his role. MCing, not his role. When it's all cut up for the video, I'm sure it'll sound awesome. But on TV itself, pre-produced, Not as interesting. But I like the idea of what they did with the actual contest. Like, I didn't think that part was boring. He specifically was not an interesting figure. However, I will say this. Now, he had the Charlotte Hornets jersey patch sponsor last year, maybe 2 years ago with one of his companies. I think his inclusion made it click for me. And I was already thinking about this with Kevin Hart, that they are trying to cater to maybe audiences who don't watch the NBA very much to try to get them into the NBA. I don't know this. I will make a strong assumption that the Mr. Beast viewing crowd is 20 and younger, college age, or probably maybe even younger than college age. People who consume YouTube more than like streaming platforms or sporting events all the time. And I'm not saying that's bad or good. That's a generational shift, right? But getting those people to watch your live event is a major thing for the NBA to try to do. And who better to do it than like the face of it, right? And when Mr. Beast soft launched his way into the NBA with the Hornets, I did actually wonder at that time if he was going to do content with the league. Lo and behold, 1 All-Star year later, here comes that. So he was not like problematic or anything. But that awkward part of it between the actual event with Dame and the fan and that it starting was weird. But that event was cool. They should keep stuff like that. A fan versus a player or some silly competition like that. That was actually cool. I hope they keep that, and I hope they keep broadcasting that. Other than that, I think the main complaint everyone had that I would also agree with is that there was so much just fluff and crap. Too many commercials, too many stoppages. The game started like 20 minutes later than they were scheduled to. There were a ton of breaks and stoppages in the action. In the middle of the title game, it was 11-1. They had like a 20 to 25-minute break to like send off the Inside the NBA crew with this ceremony, even though a bunch of them are going to still be on TV in a different capacity next year. Like they're just switching the TV station, guys. Like I get that people really like this program, but this was way too much. It's like the point of this is basketball. This is the National Basketball Association product celebrating the best basketball players with basketball games. And they just completely got away from that for a long time. Like if I didn't have to watch it to talk about it right now, I would not have. And I don't know that I will in the future. If a Pacers player doesn't make the All-Star team one year or they have like no participants, I will not do a podcast about All-Star weekend because it's not fun for me to watch that much anymore. And that was just such a drag. Like I wanted to get to this. I wanted to do my job and move on. So that stunk. I mean, that just stunk. And so as many people will list, the stuff that needs to be changed, make it about the hoops. Like they tried that last year with the back to basketball theme in Indy. And I liked the theme of it all. The game stunk. So if they had combined last year's theme, East-West, which people like, with this year's product in terms of the tournament style that I thought was wrong, but it was actually pretty good, I think they'd have a match of like good enough stuff. Now, what else could change, right? Because I still think people would want a more competitive game. I have some ideas, just a few. Okay. And I'll bring them up in the next segment. But that just actually I'll bring up a few now and then a few in the next segment. Then we'll talk about the G League game. But I would say in general, this was better basketball than last year, worse overall product. Also, a couple more complainy things. LeBron not playing, lame. I mean, like, tell everybody way before, not like 2 hours before. Come on. And Edwards not playing, not telling anyone until after that he's hurt or sick or whatever it is. Lame. Sabonis could have been in there or someone like that. That stinks. Those were, I just have too many complaints. There were not any other Pacers appearances on the weekend, so we're going to talk about some format changes, some stuff I would add, and the G League Next Up game featuring some Mad Ants coming up here on Locked On Pacers. Before we do that, we got to quickly talk about FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. There's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout a game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Love using FanDuel's live betting feature. Keeps every moment of the game exciting. Backing your favorite team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, you never feel like you miss any chance on FanDuel. Plus, the app is easy to use. And when you win, you get paid instantly right now. New FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Back here on Locked On Pacers, thanks for making this your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen, Locked On Lakers. LeBron didn't play. They have a crazy new team. Dalton Connect is back and playing for them. That's awkward. Locked On Lakers has a lot to talk about. Speaking of a lot to talk about, the All-Star events. Oh, man. There's so much I would try to change as the NBA, and I should not be in charge of anything because I have no idea what their numbers are, what they're trying to do with all this stuff. But let's talk about some format changes I would try to add. And I think that I mentioned the soft launch, air quotes, of the Mr. Beast going to the Hornets and then jumping to doing stuff like this. And I have no idea truly if those things are associated or anything like that, regardless of what I do or don't think. I do wonder if them making a team that was clearly a world team this year. Jokic was on it. Shea was on it. Pascal was on it. Victor Wembanyama was on it. If they are considering how that would look if they did a USA versus world format one year. And I wonder that because I actually think that would get guys to try to some extent, even more. That would add pride to the mix in a pretty meaningful way, in a way that the Olympics kind of do. I don't think guys would try that hard. We've seen some world's players have some, let's say, questionable effort levels in all-star games before, but it was truly USA versus world. I think that could lead to good games, and I wonder if they would ever do it. That said, the problem with it is very obvious. Then it's very hard to have the 24 players be the best 24 all-stars, and I think that has to be the core function of the all-star game. These are the players that have been deemed by the process they have to be the 12 best in each conference, and if that doesn't lead to an exact match of rosters for USA World setup, then it wouldn't work. It would completely fall apart immediately. So I think that'd be the best way to get good competition, but it's just kind of functionally challenging to do with what I think the goals of the All-Star game should be. A couple other stuff that I think would be interesting is I've seen these floated around, like making the losing team have a punishment, I think would make players try more. Like the most extreme version of that would be if you lose in the All-Star game, you cannot be named an All-Star next year. It's a little harsh, but something to that extent. Or like if you lose, you actually reduce your salary somehow. Again, not possible in the CBA, but like something to that extent. I think players like we saw in this game where they played against the Rising Stars winners are actually motivated more by like the not embarrassing loss than the winning and getting a small amount of money, right? That is, I think, something that I would be more interested in seeing if that would actually lead to success for the league than like a prize for the winners, even though I don't think they would ever actually do punishments for the losers. I saw a couple tweets today about something else I thought could be interesting is that what if the All-Star game itself was only every 4 years? Like they name All-Stars every year. They have an All-Star weekend that has some faces of the league show up and do stuff, but the actual All-Star game is very spread out. I think that could be an interesting way to make it a more meaningful game and make it an actual, fascinating, interesting product that guys care about. Regardless, the only other complaint I had about format stuff with the Pacers specifically is when they put Mattis Buzelis in the Rising Stars game, Jarris Walker could have been in that. Come on. He's played well enough to deserve that. Okay, stuff I would consider adding as the NBA. One-on-one. Guys would definitely try one-on-one. Or 3-on-3. 3-on-3 is fun. Unrivaled's been fun to watch on the WNBA side. Try it. Like, see if that's more interesting or if guys take it seriously. I wonder if it just being a different product would lead to guys, wanting to take it more seriously or at least seeing how it explores with their game or being like a legend in a new thing. Because, from being there before, that would be cool. Like the way All-Star the game was when I was there was really unenjoyable, I think, for a lot of viewers. It was just comically easy to score. And so if there was some other game that fans could watch the best players play basketball, even if it's not, the 5-on-5 they're used to, but they're still trying and putting on a show, that would be something that I'd be very interested in. Something else, just zooming out, that I thought about, I had this in my notes before actually watching, right? Again, from being at All-Star Weekend 2 years ago when it was in Indy, or last year, I suppose, 2 All-Star Weekends ago, was something I wish and I wondered when I was around there, like there was a lot of ways to see players, right? A lot. You could go to NBA Con at the convention center here in Indy, and there was all these events in the mall and all that. It all was great. Like the players were the central focus of it. I just kind of like thought and wondered, is there a way for the league to make it so there'd be more, of the player fan one-on-one interaction, like as much as possible. And I know it's not what players really would want. And I know that there's a lot to that with security and safety and all that, but like that is a way to make it, even if the games suck, just an absolutely awesome experience for fans. And so the obviously most extreme version of that is a fan getting to go shoot threes on the court with Damian Lillard. You can't have, thousands of people doing that. But that is awesome for that one fan, even if he hated the games or like his favorite player lost immediately or barely played, right? That would still be an awesome weekend or day or whatever. And so if you can get those kind of moments to be as frequent as possible, I think that should be a goal for the league. That is obviously a major ask. But something like that, I think, is something that the league should try to do. And again, I know it's not something the players would love, but diving headfirst into something like that would be something I would be interested in if I were running All-Star Weekend, because that's what it's all about. But that's obviously a huge ask. And make All-Stars in the G League a bigger deal, or make it mean something more than just like you're a G League All-Star. I know that sounds silly to say, but it's just called the Next Up game. Call it All-Stars. Make it a thing. Make it so, when guys get called up, it's like, oh, if you're the correlation between being a G League All-Star and getting to the NBA, like all that should matter and be like a big deal to these guys. And speaking of G League, Keisei Tominaga played in the Next Up game. He was on Team Strictly Ball. Yes, these are the real team names. That's another thing. If you are in charge of the G League Next Up game, please more serious team names next year. Although I enjoyed the Next Up game 2 years ago. Tominaga representing the Mad Ants, 5 points, drilled a three, exactly what he's been doing all season. Debuted some new Curry shoes out there in the Bay, which is pretty cool for him. He made it in on the fan vote, certainly. Top 10 fan voters in the G League just default get into the Next Up game, which is part of probably why they don't just straight up call it All-Stars, because he hasn't been one of straight up. He just hasn't been one of the best 10 G League players this season, but it's cool that he made it, and they take a much more serious look at the fan vote than the NBA does in terms of putting those players in the game. So he was popular. And he's been playing actually better with the Mad Ants of late than he was early in the season. There was a time I thought that Jahlil Okafor would be playing in this. He did not. And so Tominaga's team lost in their first game. So they didn't get to go very far. But he hit a three, showed up, got to do some stuff, got to represent the Mad Ants deservedly. He's very popular, especially in Japan. And that is the only other real Pacers organization inclusion in the weekend, because Pascal played a small amount, and that's it. Off to LA next year. Pacers will try to have more guys make the game, and I hopefully won't complain as much next year. I apologize for being a negative Nancy today. So the rest of this week, pre-scheduled episodes. Let's go through the schedule. Tuesday will be my classic post-trade deadline moves the Pacers can still make this season episode, made possible by Jahlil Okafor's 10-day. Lots of stuff they can still do transactionally. Just because trades are done does not mean they can't keep tweaking the roster. Wednesday will be not me. It will be the squad show for this week from my Eastern Conference companions. I won't be on it, obviously. I'll be honeymooning far away. Thursday will be a mailbag. I requested the questions last week. That'll come out Thursday. And then Friday, they play Memphis on Thursday. I don't think I'll be watching it over there. Maybe I will. And if I do, I'll put up like a 20-minute. But if not, you can expect me back next week after their second game back from the break. So 4 episodes for sure this week, including this one. Most of them already recorded. And I'm only telling you they're pre-recorded because if something crazy happens, if someone gets hurt in practice, if some insane news comes out, I won't talk about it here until next week. Sorry about that. Much more important things going on. Thank you all for listening today. Hope you enjoyed the All-Star game and experienced more than I did. Back tomorrow talking more Pacers. Till then, everybody, have a wonderful day.